webinar is how dashboard reports help cure your IT infrastructure headaches. So hopefully we'll shed some light on dashboard reports and what they mean to us, I should say. So our structure is kind of, we do a poll, some slides, and then I'll, get you into our software and hopefully answer questions and shed some light on a few things regarding our software and kind of how it works. So with that said, let me see if I can get the polling question working. Let's see here. Polls. Here we go. Launch the poll. So what information do you want to see in dashboard reports? Choose as many as you want. It's multiple choice. So data center capacity, assets. What is data center capacity? Usually that's things like rack utilization. Well, there's rack capacity. I think data center capacity is more of an overall. Assets are assets, right? What do you have? Routers, switches, et cetera. Where is it? And so on. Power. Power's power. Power, could be things like power of a device, manufacturer spec. It might be real power. It might be real-time power. It might be readings of power and so on. Connections, physical connections. How are things, connected together, layer one. Rack capacity, rack utilization, how many rack units do you have left, and so on. So I'm going to wait another 8, 7, 6, 5 seconds, counting down, and there we go, end polling. So, all right, very good. So looks like you guys want to see assets. What's a big one? Assets, connections, rack capacity, power a little bit, so on. So cool. Thanks for that. A little feedback there. Moving on, what is dashboard reports? So sort of getting insight that you need. Really, it talks about the things we just polled you on, right? Data center capacity, rack capacity, et cetera. Just having information in one place, but you have all this data, being able to report on it, it'll be easier to for me to show than sort of talk about. So with that said, let's jump to polling question number 2. Let me go and find polling question number 2. Let me go to number 2 here. Second question, do you prefer table reports or dashboards? Let me launch the poll. So table reports are more like an Excel sheet. That's usually my preference, although dashboards are fun to look at. Dashboard would be more like pie charts and bar charts and that kind of thing. Unsure, which I totally get. I think it always comes down to the data personally and what you're trying to see. I usually call the dashboard reports more like a manager report. Hey, kind of give me a big picture overview. Table reports are more detailed, where you may want to sort data differently and do different things with the data, sort of massage it a bit. So looks like most of you guys are interested in more of the dashboard reports, which is great. So I will definitely talk about those and other things you can do. So let me end polling here, I'll close that. And let me jump into our software a bit. So let's talk about netTerrain and all these wonderful reports, dashboard reports. So reports, dashboard reports, table reports, data, and so on, none of that matters unless you have data, good data that you trust. Right, and of course, have a place where you put the data. So reporting is one of those things, you can do reports really against any kind of data set. It could be a spreadsheet, database with tables, and so on, but it comes down to data. Now, in terms of us and our data, we're talking about, of course, a tool, which is our tool, netTerrain, for doing network documentation, whether it's DCIM or logical documentation or outside plant and so on. You have data. In our tool, you have data that might be representative of a hierarchy, right? Locations. I have a location like Baltimore, and Baltimore has different data points about it. It's the city name, there's a contact, there's an address, and so on. That in itself could be a report. Show me a report of all my locations with the contact person, right? Show me a report of all my buildings. Where are they located? What city are they in? What are the latitude and longitude coordinates, and so on, right? So this is all data that can be captured. I'm not saying in our tool everybody does that, because we don't. We have customers that might just do logical drawings, or they might do very physical type drawings, hierarchies, and things like that. So So if we drill down into the project a bit, right? We go down. In a view like this, we show things like cabinets. This is a cabinet. This is a device, a web camera. Here's a temperature sensor or server check temperature sensor and so on. Inside the racks, we get down into showing things like equipment. So, why am I talking about all this? Well, the data, the information you see is the data you want to report against, right? So connections, whether it's power or physical connections, that kind of thing. So I have a physical connection, Ethernet cable, power cables, connectivity, port-to-port connections, where are things located, and so on. This is your data set that you want to, sort of take, massage, do things with, and give you some information that helps you do your job, right? To help you answer questions. Questions like, I've got a Cisco 3825 and it's got, let's say, this iOS version or just the model itself, and it's being decommissioned by Cisco. They're no longer supporting this. I need to know how many of these I have, maybe physically where they are, and so on. I want to do a report for that. How do I do that? Well, in netTerrain, we give you a few different options. We have the dashboard reports, we have table reports, we have query reports, and so on. And these are things that you can kind of tailor yourself if you need to or want to. So first and foremost, you've got the ubiquitous report, the dashboard. We all talk about dashboards and panes of glass and all these other things. That is terminology, but ultimately it's you being able to get into a data set and pull data points out that help you make decisions. Again, the thing I just mentioned was just an example. How many of that particular model type do I have in the environment, and where is it, and so on. So you guys can start to make planning decisions. I want to replace these. Where are they? How am I going to replace them if they're in, the middle of the U.S. versus the ones on the East Coast? And, who do I deploy to do that? And where are they located? And, come up with a plan kind of thing. So that report can be that starting point of where you go, where it drives you. But you have other types of reports, assets. We were talking about assets. So assets can be asset location or quantities. How many routers do I have? How many switches, servers, power, and so on. So something like this gives you an overall overview of what you have. Maybe it's by vendor. I've got X IBM devices, Juniper. If you're doing contract negotiations with somebody, you're like, well, how many of these things do I have? So I can go in and say, hey, look, maybe I want to replace all my Cisco with Juniper. Well, how many do I have and what models, and how do things correlate, so I can make better informed decisions and also inform people, my boss, or again, the person I'm going out and doing negotiations with to replace my equipment and so on, right? You need good information and data. Of course, the data has to be good for you to give accurate, so hopefully that's sort of the case here. So we with the dashboard engine you see here, this we actually give you the ability and capability to build your own reports if you want to. We have what's called the dashboard editor that you can go in and create reports. Looks like we're having some questions pop in here, but I'm going to ignore those for now. Hopefully all is well in the world. So those are things that you can start to do. You can build basically your own reports as needed. So anyway, moving on. So what kind of reports can you get into? Well, this is summary of things like data center capacity reports, rack capacity. Data center would be kind of an overview of all the equipment, all the number of racks you have, and so on. Things like rack capacity. This one's kind of busy, but it talks about each rack and how full each cabinet is, right? Different locations. I'm not going to get into the details of each one of these. It's not really that critical, but these are just examples too. The dashboard reports are something that, again, you could create your own if you want to. There is in our tool, there's a built-in software to create your own dashboard type reports. It helps if you know a little bit about SQL, that kind of thing. So that's always a good thing. But Reports are something you can request from us. It's usually not necessarily the dashboard. It's more table reports, which I'll talk about, that we create for our customers. We do these all the time for customers, creating reports. The thing about reports is always interesting. I always get questions about reports and demos. Do you have reports? Do you have reporting? The one report you guys will need is the one report, of course, I may not have out of the box, right? Because everybody has their own flavor of reports they need and want to see data in a certain way, which is fine. That's expected. So what we do to accommodate that, one, we give you a tool that you can build your own reports if you want to. Two, when you're under maintenance, you can request reports from us. You can say, Jason, we want, X, Y, and Z data. How do we build that? We'll typically build that for you if it's a table type report. And there's no heavy duty customization or back end crazy SQL stuff you might need. And sometimes that's required too. And that's fine too. We can do those as typically part of services, but most reports, that's not really required. It's usually pretty straightforward, things like tables and basic sort of dashboard stuff. But again, we have a lot of things out of the box too, from that standpoint. Now, when you do get into reports, you can do things like sort things, table views, et cetera. The other thing too we typically do is give you the ability to export the data somehow. Like in the case of a table report, export to CSV, right? You want to take that data and kind of move it out into Excel so you can further manipulate the data. Most of these reports you can also export to PDF or just to an image if you want a sort of a bigger view of a pie chart or a bar chart, that kind of thing. So that's all there. The other thing, reports, they're not limited to just in the dashboard. Reports can be run from within the software itself as well. Anytime you see something in red, you can actually click on it, and it basically generates a report of some sort. Table, it might be a table report, might be a device report, might be some other report, but it's it's data that you can get to pretty quickly and available. The other thing with the netTerrain, this was something we added pretty recently, was a query builder that you can use as well. So you have a button in here where you can go in and create a query. You can build a query and save it. You can basically, you're taking information from some of the source tables in netTerrain, the primary source tables, nodes and links, which would represent all your devices and so on. I'm just going to bring up a default query and click OK, and you'll see it kind of adds a few more columns, and it's sort of focused on a specific device type. But if I submit this, you'll see it goes into a table view. So the point, when you get into whether it's my tool or another tool you're looking at, the thing you want to know and ask is, can you get reports? Can you get data out of the system? And for us, it's absolutely yes. I mean, it's your data, so it's there. So how do you get it out, though? How easy or hard is it? Well, with us, we have a dashboard tool with some built-in reports. We have table views. We have this query tool. We have a lot of pre-built, predefined reports. And then you can, if you're a customer, you can request reports. So we try and make it as painless as possible for folks to get information and data out of the system. So that's kind of what I had about reporting, dashboard reports, table reports, query reports. But when you do go out and look for a tool to do network documentation, whether it's us or somebody else, one of the things you definitely want to know about is how can you report or get data out of the system. We also have descriptions of where data is stored. We have a database sort of documentation about the database structure and so on. We don't like, to leave any sort of open questions from that standpoint. Again, it's your data, so you should be able to get it out of the system. So when you are out there looking at tools, just one of those questions to ask for sure is about the data and how you can get it out. We have other ways of getting stuff out, but this was really about the reports and reporting. So with that said, I'm going to jump over just to some QA stuff, see if there's any questions. Give me 1 second here, and I'm going to just hit stop share, and then I'll hit the Q&A. Can you customize the dashboards? Actually, you can customize the dashboards. We have a dashboard guide. So if you want to sort of move the dashboard around or have things show up differently or add more, of course, reports to it, add your own sort of categories of reports. You can get into all those things. We have a class, in fact. If you want to take a class just on dashboard reports, you can do that. Can you tie into other data sources? Well, that's a good question. And the answer is, with the dashboard reporting engine, you definitely can, because it's actually it's all fed from a data source, and in this case, it's netTerrain is the data source. But you could actually take that and use a reporting engine for other data sources or tools, even. Our technically, our reporting engine could be used as a reporting engine for other data sources, not just ours. So that's a good question. Okay. Let's see here. Matt, sorry, I don't know if I'm supposed to say the names, but anyway, can you show the data center capacity report again? I'll bring that back up in just a second. The other one is, your platform available both in on-prem and SaaS with option to integrate with ServiceNow. So yes, we do both on-prem and SaaS. I should have mentioned that before. On-premise is just that. You install it now. We are a Windows platform, so Windows Server, SQL Server database is our option. So if you're looking for Linux or something, sorry, that's not us. But yes, we do have a SaaS flavor as well. It's pretty much, you can do pretty much everything I showed you with the SaaS as well. I think there are a couple limitations, but ServiceNow integration, absolutely. We have something called the collector, which allows you to connect to ServiceNow and bring data from ServiceNow and other data sources. I can also do SNMP discovery as well, so I can do all those things. So let me go back. You were talking capacity report. Let me do a share again. Sorry, I jumped out a little too fast. I should have, I guess, left that up. Let's see here. Get into my reports again. I think the capacity, at least this capacity report, has to do with the space. I think the number of racks. So this tells you how many cabinets, quantity of racks. This one is rack utilization, so what percentage you're at. Now, this is only showing you like the top 5 areas. There could be more to this. So, you know, we sort of limit some of these reports just because that's just how we built them. It's not that you couldn't do more or have more information or data. It's just what we set up in this case. So hopefully that's what you were looking at. You know, we had rack capacity. We had things like connectivity, which is number of cables and cable types, basically. So I usually look down here more than up here. These are kind of specific for connections at a certain location. Down here, it talks about different link types, and this one is connectors, what kind of connectors, and this one is specific cable types. So we have one for users, you know, who's logged in to the system by account, who's had experienced login issues, or by role, you know, that kind of stuff. So, but these can be expanded. These are in no way like a limitation. It's just to show examples of some built-in stuff. Again, usually it's becomes one of those things where people want to know more. So, see if there's any other questions. Nope, I think that was everything. So, obviously, if you guys have more questions, just reach out to us. You can contact sales at Graphical Networks. You can get on there and call us, good old-fashioned phone call. If you go to graphicalnetworks.com, I'm Jason Sherman, so Jason at graphicalnetworks.com, or you can email Fred. Any of us. Fred's usually the primary. He's the salesperson, just more pre- and post-sales technical stuff. And so on. So thanks for attending. Happy New Year to everybody, and look forward to talking with you guys hopefully in the new year. So take care. Bye-bye.